Welcome back, everybody. I'm Ralph Murhai, your host. I'm the CEO of ERP Aero, and today I'm joined by Powell Simbulan, who's the Director of Sales Sales Development over at NSL Aerospace. His career, I think I've followed for a little bit since I got to know him. It's gone from oil to energy to aviation into what he's doing currently, and I've been looking forward to speaking with him for a while. We just happened to come across ASA AFRA together and thought it was a perfect opportunity. Honestly, he's the one who suggested this, so I love it. So hope to give you guys exactly what you're looking for. Just a little bit of a background. We've both been in business for a while. His path started, as I said, with a finance degree. He moved fast into commercial lending, oil and gas, seismic software, and eventually into aerospace, which is where he is right now at NSL Aerospace. He's been there, I think, since 2018. What he's done is help shape NSL Aerospace's strategy while also co-founding Hyperjump Consulting, where he helps owners launch their business into the next level. It's a story that I want to hear more about, and I hope that you guys are going to enjoy it as well. So without any further ado, Powell, welcome. Nice to have you.
No, thank you. I appreciate the great introduction. And so, let's just fire away.
All right. So let's start with something easy. Quick hello. Tell everybody where you're from and something fun that you're working on lately.
So I am. I'm from. I like to say that I'm from Houston, from Texas, but I'm originally from the Philippines, and so we had moved to the U.S. in the early '90s, and then kind of grew up in Texas. So I'd like to say that I'm a Texan.
I can relate to that. We moved to the U.S. in 1985, and lo and behold, I'm a Floridian, so I can relate to that very, very, very well. Take us back a little bit in time, at your time at Strake and the early University of Houston days. Were you always headed for business leadership, do you think?
So I like to say that when I was at Strake, which was a high school I went to, it was a pretty good lead up to business development. And I didn't know it at the time, but the way that it's a boys Jesuit school, and the way they kind of train and mold the guys there are very. It naturally just lends to people dealing with people, right? And so, but a lot of the times you're thinking, hey, I want to go into biology or I want to go into engineering, but they do build a great foundation for kind of interacting, engaging with people,
right,
just on a day-to-day basis. And so then I went to the University of Houston, where I studied accounting and finance, and I had a short stint in commercial lending. It was right about the time during kind of the Great Recession, and so I kind of retracted and decided what I wanted to do with myself, and then finally sales was a door opened that I went into. And so actually that's all she wrote since then. I've been in business development. I've found that that's kind of one of my fortes in life is engaging with people and building relationships. And so I just kind of leaned on that strength, and I wanted to go down that path. And so there have been several industries that I've been in, and sales is just a relationship type of talent or attribute, and so I went into doing sales. So again, like you mentioned, I was in finance, and then I went into there was a short stint at medical sales, and then oil and gas sales after graduate school, and then started my own sales and marketing consultancy with a partner of mine, and then I went and actually NSL was one of our clients, and then I became their. Wow. A year into their consulting engagement, they had asked me to come full time. So that's how I ended up here. And 7 years later, here we are sitting in this room.
It's amazing what a small world it is. Without telling you the entire story, maybe some other time, but I went to school for psychology. That's what I wanted to do. 2 years later, I went to brokerage, and I was a stockbroker for the next 7 years. Then I had my finance company right after that, and then I got into aviation right after I sold that company. Mm-hmm. So obviously different journeys, different paths, but some of the same things that we have in common. What did you learn over the years you think that has helped you and can be applied to aviation and or aerospace into what you're doing right now? What were some of those lessons?
So lately, what we've been talking about at our office and in our meetings is that aviation, because of all of the quality, because of all of the safety, which is all very necessary, tends to lag behind other industries when it comes to kind of how they transfer knowledge, how they expose the knowledge to the general public to give more people insight on what we do. And so I think that there is a way to continue that tradition of safety and quality, but there's also a way to kind of expedite and speed up that process by providing a lot of information through the typical media outlets like YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, especially LinkedIn. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do moving forward as as a company at NSL, is really be on that leading edge that brings aviation to get them caught up to other industries.
Right. You know what? It's you sort of got ahead of me a little bit, which is good. We already talked a little bit about how you got involved with NSL, but taking that journey in and of itself, what do you think makes it a little bit different, and how are you balancing the dual roles? I guess if I can use those words in terms of your company, what you're doing with NSL, how's that coming about?
So I'd like to lend some of the success at NSL to our ownership, because they have provided a lot of autonomy, which is great. They tend to have the trust in the individual, right? We're working always on the process itself, but trust in the individual, trust that they give you the room to kind of run free, and then if there's production, if there are results, then they're good with it, right? They're happy, and so that's really what some of the success. And then going to your balancing the roles. I mean, I just think that this is a normal way of things, because I like being at a small, nimble company, smaller, nimble, because it's nimble, because you're able to make decisions relatively quickly in order to get things done, right? And so, I have been in other larger companies where it would take a long time to make things happen. And there's pros to that too. But at the same time, you just work with what you have, and you just make the best of it.
Okay. Let me just switch gears for one quick second. So we're still at NSL, and let's concentrate a little bit more on the work that you're doing there. I'm going to throw a couple of I'm going to throw a couple of questions at you. I think they're relevant in terms of what you guys do and a lot of other people's role in the industry. But at NSL specifically, you and I have talked about AI quite a bit. I have my opinions, which I'll gladly share with you, but I want to get your take on what you think the role of AI is in business.
So obviously AI in business has a lot of possibilities. I mean, I want to start by not saying that I'm at all any type of expert on this matter. I have seen it produce expedited work, and and it's very intelligent. And so in the role of business, I mean, there is a lot of paper in aviation, right? Traceability, batches, things like this. And I'm speaking of batches because we're in the chemical world. And so, I think that if there's a secondary eyes on that paper trail, that, tracking all of the materials, all the parts that goes through the system, I think that helps tremendously in checks and making sure that people don't make mistakes, and then making processes faster.
Right.
Does that answer the question?
It does. It sort of builds on maybe a follow-up question or a comment. I sort of heard it resonate at ASA this year a lot. Everybody's talking about AI. Some people don't understand what AI is. Some other people think it's going to do X, but it actually does Y. But one of the things that I did not hear, except for maybe one speaker talk about, was basically what it's built on, right? So yeah, AI is great. By no means am I an expert. I use it in day-to-day for little tasks or big tasks, but there's a lot of ways to go. But what do you think about, what kind of things need to be in place, in your opinion, in order for AI to become a lot more relevant? Just for you, forget everybody else, just for you. So whether it's your processes, whether it's your technology, whether it's the architecture, whatever it is, how do you feel about those things, and where do you think you guys are in prepping for that next chapter?
I think that AI, again, I touched on it earlier. I think it's extremely, the potential is huge.
Right.
However, it is a different kind of animal based on the other massive changes that have happened in the history of humanity.
Right.
My main concern really is if you start to lean on these processes that are taken over by AI, and then it kind of takes on a life of its own. How do you have a plan B if something does go a different direction?
Correct.
Right? Because if you have set forth a system or a process, you have a team that built that out, you have a team to lean on, you have the teams to go, hey, like, why is this part of the process today not working? Can we get IT and the subject matter expert to work on this? Versus if something does go wrong and it's kind of in a black box and it doesn't want to tell you why it did what it did, how do you figure that out? Right? And so that's really the concern. So systematizing, implementing AI within the system as opposed to just fully, as opposed to partially, and being able to kind of truncate that section if if you need to triage that part. That's really where my concern is, and that's why we haven't at NSL jumped into the deep end with it, because of some of those concerns.
Those are valid concerns, and I can relate especially to that last comment you made about jumping on the deep end. Just from our point of view, we are big believers in where this technology is taking us, but we're even bigger believers in the infrastructure and the architecture that goes underneath it, which goes in line with the things that you just talked about. AI is a big buzzword nowadays, and everybody's talking about AI, but my humble opinion is a lot of people don't know what it is they're talking about. So a lot of it is trying to build the proper infrastructure in order to fit in some of this technology. But you're right, your concerns are valid in terms of what do you do if X happens or if Y happens. Does it play at all into the role of your playbook in business currently, or is that something that is still sort of being planned?
It currently does not play a huge role outside of what people are typically doing with it kind of on a personal basis. But we are talking about it because there's a lot of systems that are, I don't want to call them dated at NSL. However, that we would want to find a solution, and it seems like for a while, a home-baked solution or consultants coming in and trying to provide a solution hasn't really been a fix. And that's why we kind of shifted to go, hey, there's this new thing, AI, that can possibly figure it out because it's so smart. But at the same time, we're still kind of careful with it.
Absolutely. So let's make this, let's sort of make this a little bit easier, I guess. Moving away from AI, how do you, on a personal note, how do you balance structure and creativity when you're working with fast-moving teams? You already mentioned that you like, a smaller team size. It's easier to get things done, but some of those things are always in play. How do you actually balance that structure?
I'm going to be honest, I'm not very good at balancing. However, I will say this in the sense that I'm a firm believer in like self-awareness and knowing where your talents lie and what you're strong about. And there's certain days where you wake up feeling like a superhero, feeling like you could do everything. But then I very proactively try to quickly retract and say, hey, look, what am I really good at, and who should I lean on for the stuff that I'm not good at, right? And so I guess maybe the answer to your balancing question is really making sure the counterweight, which is another person, exists in order for the team to, function as a whole, as an efficient squad, right? And so that's and in terms of like a work-life balance, if that needs to be answered, is really, I like working, right? This is really what gets me going, and being in front of customers is really where my environment is, and so if there's a team back home that is that I'm confident in, which I am, I can trust that they can get the job done once the business, it's directed their way, right?
I agree. I see what you mean. You know what? You started talking about that by saying maybe you're not that good at balancing, but that was a perfectly balanced answer. I had to tell you that. That was pretty good. I like what I had to hear. Last question: what were you hoping to get out of the ASA conference that we find ourselves at, and did you find it?
Yeah. So my team and I, this is the first time that we come to the ASA conference. We got our ASA 100 certification a year ago, April, and due to some business, some customers that required it, mainly overseas, and so naturally we were like, hey, let's try to squeeze this conference into. So a year later, we decided to come here, and it's been great. The people are great. I've dealt with the auditors. Kelly was our auditor here in the last couple of weeks, who came to our office, and he was wonderful. And then Michelle Dickstein and her team have been great. And so, it's just good to get to know another avenue to meet other vendors, other distributors that we have that are part of the ASA, and then also the end users. The end users are here. There's some airlines here. It's been great. And so, we try to cover it on the media side, and I think we're going to do a lot more with ASA moving forward.
I think everybody is. I think a lot of people are, and I'd love to continue this conversation with you offline about a lot of the integrations that we've built into ERP Aero with ASA, like how to access the ASA statement that everybody's been talking about here for the last couple of days. And there's a lot more to come. So I'm glad I talked to you about it a couple of days ago.
No, this has been
really,
awesome.
really glad that you came here. It was a pleasure sitting down with you. I want to say thank you. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you're working on that you want everybody to know about? And if there is, how do they find you?
Yeah, so obviously I'm pushing, NSL, we're a chemical manufacturer distributor. We want to be the provider to a lot of the aerospace needs, both commercial and general aviation. So NSLAerospace.com, that's where you can find us. And then and then also we're working a lot on the social media side, like I touched on your earlier question. We want to take what used to be legacy aerospace and kind of help it go to the next level. And anybody that wants to join us on this journey, we're happy to partner up. We're happy to work on that with you. And feel free to ask us any questions.
Will do.
As we're doing it. So.
Thank you. I'll say this in closing, and then we can go back to doing what we were doing before. In my opinion, a lot of people come into your life for a certain reason. I haven't figured out why our paths crossed, but I like it so far, and I like where this is going.
I
So
agree.
I agree. I want to take the time and say thank you for taking the time to sit down with me. Let's go have lunch and talk about it some more.
Yeah, thanks, Ralph. I appreciate it.
You got it, man.